Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Let me ask you to silence your mobile devices at this time if you have any that are not already silenced. Madam Clerk, all commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Mulwee. Let me also remind you, if you have items to bring before us today and you come to the podium, please press the button. Be sure the red light is on so that we can hear you well and get a good recording of our meeting. Also, let me thank you for your appreciation with complying with COVID-19 protocol, and thank you for doing that today as well. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. And gentlemen, item number 2 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. You've had this agenda for several days. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that's all of us, Madam Clerk. I have 2 presentations today. First one comes from NCVRS. October is National Disability Employment and Awareness Month. This will come from Janet Hanna, Business Relations Representative for Vocational Rehab. Janet, are you with us? Yes. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Janet Hanna. I'm with Vocational Rehab Services, and October is National Disability and Employment Month. And we are asking that the county commissioners sign a proclamation celebrating October for October for us here in Burke County. The Disability Employment and Awareness Act was signed in 1988 by our Congress. So this particular celebration has been around for 33 years. Each year we try to do something within the community with employers in regards to disability employment and awareness. I brought several posters if anyone would like copies of them to hang in your offices or in your buildings. And Kay has those. And the theme for 2021 is America's Recovery. Is Americans' Recovery Powered by Inclusion?
Mr. Chairman, not necessarily a question, but it would kind of localize this for us if we had the numbers in Burke County and the state, the USA, or especially Burke County and the state. I reckon we could add that between now and our regular meeting.
I will see what I can find out about persons within the county, and I can also see with the individuals that we currently serve here in Burke County. And we work with people with all types of disabilities, so, you know, no disability is left behind.
That would make it a local item for the county and the state, so
Okay.
That's the reason I thought it would be good.
I can do that, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, comments? All right, here none. Now, this item will remain on our agenda without objection. Ms. Hanna, thank you for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, Burke Recovery, proclamation declaring September as National Recovery Month in Burke County. This will be presented by Kim James, Executive Director for Burke Recovery. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for allowing Burke Recovery and the Burke Substance Abuse Network to be present at your meeting today. So I did want to share with you some numbers. In 2020, 93,000 Americans died from substance use overdose. Burke County alone had a combined 556 that's fatal and non-fatal overdoses in the same time period in 2020. And January through July 2021 rates are even 43% higher than that same period last year. So overdose is a major concern for us, but we also need to look at recovery as well, which is the journey that people take to escape from that fatality. So we are asking that the commissioners declare September 2021 as National Recovery Month in Burke County. You've seen me here before every year asking the same thing, but I do want to share that in the meantime, while we're looking at substance use and figuring out how as a community to address it, we also need to celebrate the successes, celebrate the lives that have been saved, and celebrate how do we pay that forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. James. Any questions on this matter? Hearing none, this item will remain on our agenda without objection. Thank you for being here. All right, item number 4, scheduled public hearings. We have one scheduled public hearing this month, and this comes from Western Piedmont Council of Governments, CDBG first public hearing, and this will be presented by Paul Tigg. Afternoon, Paul.
Afternoon, Commissioners. In a couple of weeks, I'll be coming to you for a first public hearing on the Community Block Grant, Community Development Block Grant Program. This initial public hearing will just make aware of the funding that is available, and then we will look to come back to you in the next month or two with a potential program. One thing to note that Burke County now as a Tier 1 county, there would be no match on the part of Burke County should any CDBG be awarded.
All right, thank you very much. Gentlemen, any questions on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the scheduled public hearings agenda. Thank you, Paul, for being here. This brings us to item 5, consent agenda. First item on our consent agenda this afternoon is resolution in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Gentlemen, you've had this resolution in your package. I'll just take just a moment to remind us a couple items. The National Breast Cancer Awareness Month organization is a partnership of national public service organizations, professional medical associations, and government agencies working together to promote breast cancer awareness, share information on the disease, and provide greater access to screening services. I won't read this entire resolution. Any question or comment on this item? Seeing here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 2 comes from our clerk, reappointment to the jury commission. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to approve an exception to Section 2.88E, membership requirements, length of service of the Burke County Code of Ordinances, and reappoint Robert Love to the Jury Commission for a 2-year term ending September 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. Any questions on this matter? Seeing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 3, also coming from the clerk, reappointment to the planning board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint.
Will remain on the consent agenda. Okay, you're on a roll. Approval of updated bylaws for Council on Aging.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request on behalf of the Council on Aging. They could not be here today. Bylaws must be approved in accordance with Article 2, Section 287 of the Burke County Code of Ordinances. The bylaws are in your packet. There are no substantive changes, mostly formatting and some clarifications.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any question on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple, I think. Article number 6 says that we should be getting quarterly reports from this committee, and I don't recall one in months. Am I correct or incorrect?
I don't remember one either. I'll be happy to bring that to their attention.
All right. You gentlemen see that?
I do see it, yes. I don't right off recall seeing a report lately, but Madam Clerk, you can check on that, please.
Be glad to.
Other questions? All right, seeing here none, this item will remain on consent agenda. Item number 5, a memorandum of understanding between Burke and Catawba County. This will come from Brock Hall, our emergency coordinator. Brock, afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is fairly unextraordinary. It's an existing MOU we have in place with Catawba County for some rack space on the tower site at Baker's Mountain. We don't own any equipment on Baker's Mountain, but it is one of our Viper sites, and it is one of our simulcast sites for VHF paging. So they just leased 15 inches of rack space for us to slide our equipment in there. It's been in place for about 5 years now. It's just a renewal of the agreement. I don't even think they remembered that we still had this agreement with them up there. So any questions on that?
Okay, thank you, Brock. Any questions on this item?
Brock, I did not, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of, I didn't see a rent on there. Is that complimentary from Catawba County?
There's no costs associated with it.
Okay, the second question I had, did we also investigate the space on the tower on Smith Mountain?
I'm not familiar with Smith Mountain, I don't think.
Well, the reason I know about it, I built it.
Okay.
For WXRC radio at the time. And I just wondered, it's an excellent place, and it tops Baker's Mountain.
Right.
And the height on it, so.
And this was, like I said, there was an existing Viper site already on Baker's Mountain, and I think that's why the radio engineers picked that. But we didn't construct anything up there or anything new in any new sites. This was one that was already in place.
I was offered that tower for sale when they moved XRC to Charlotte for $140,000. Did I make a mistake or what? But anyhow, put that in the back of your head somewhere, because anytime you need power space, it'd be an excellent opportunity. I tried to talk WNNC into looking at it, but anyhow, it's, I don't think Hotel bought it. But anyhow, somebody bought it, and if they have space, it'd be an excellent site to consider.
That's good to know.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, here none. This item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 6, also coming from the Emergency Communications Center, Emergency Fire Dispatch Agreement Approval. Brock?
Yes, sir. I think you may be aware of the emergency medical dispatch protocols that we have in place currently. We've been using them for several years now. That's a certification that our staff goes through in providing medical care during medical calls. So if it's a medical emergency, we provide the initial first aid over the phone until responders arrive. It's a national certification that all of our staff have to work there. This is the same thing, only this is for the fire side of the house. So it's the same company. Priority Dispatch is a similar set of protocols, only it deals with fire, structure fires, hazmat incidents, motor vehicle accidents, all that kind of stuff. So it basically standardizes and formalizes the call taking and dispatch process for fire calls in the same way that it does for medical calls. It adds a level of accountability to the staff. It's the same certification. It's a national certification. It adds a level of call review and grading for the fire side of the house, just like for the medical side of the house. This is 911 eligible for reimbursement. We did plan on this and we did budget for it, and we've got the money. We're ready to move forward. We're just looking for approval.
All right, thank you, Brock. Gentlemen, you've seen this information. Any questions from Brock?
Mr. Chairman, I have two concerns with it. The first one, Brock, is that its terms are for 3 years under item 6, 5 years under item 16. And the other question is a JR question. It says any dispute would be settled in the state of Utah. And JR, I believe it would be better if we could get that in the state of North Carolina. Is that allowed, or is it worth challenging?
It may be allowed. We can always make that request. Utah would be a fair piece for us Burke Countyans to have to travel just to have a
Well, expense-wise, it could be a good bit of money, but more important than that is understanding the difference in the law of Utah on this item and the laws of North Carolina.
We have made that request for them, that amendment, and they're supposed to be bringing that back to us. So hopefully before the meeting, they'll have that back to me.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We have made that request to make that change from Utah to North Carolina.
Oh, bless your heart.
So hopefully they'll have it in the next few days.
I knew you were smarter than the average, Mayor.
Oh, I try.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on this item?
Can I make one recommendation? And I just thought of it on the way over here. When they make that change for the Utah to North Carolina, they're going to look at the number of licenses that are required for our center, and that may change. It may go down from, I think we got 12 listed in here. We may take it down to 9 to be in compliance with the 911 board regulations. If that's the case, it will change the cost, but it should bring it down some. So my only recommendation would be in the motion, if we could have it, instead of giving the county manager the authority to execute the agreement, to possibly negotiate and execute the agreement if they tweak it a little bit, just so we have it in full compliance with the 911 board.
We would always agree if you can get the same deal at a lower cost that citizens of Burke County, it's a good deal.
Okay, anything else? All right, here none. This item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
Item number 7 comes from the Fire Marshal's Office, appointment to Local Emergency Planning Committee, and Fire Marshal Willis is unable to be here today, so Kay's going to take up this item. Madam
Thank you,
Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to appoint Emily Petit to the Local Emergency Planning Committee, seat number 5, to complete an unexpired term ending January 31st, 2024, and to approve an exception to the residency provision of the Code of Ordinances. This is replacing the local Rebecca McLeod, the former health director's seat.
Okay, thank you, Kay. Any questions, comment on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Kay. Item number 8, General Services, HRC Building, HVAC Controls, Installation Updates. This comes from Mark Delahunt. Mark, afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Phase 1 of the HRC HVAC Controls project began in late June of this year. It was delayed largely because of the availability of components. As we know, the supply chain has slowed down considerably. Currently, both the air handlers and the chiller are being run by the new controls. Most of the other controls are hooked up except for the health department, which is being done after normal business hours so that not to interfere with the operations there. During the installation, it was discovered that several VAV boxes and dampers needed to be retrofitted, and I've already requested a change order for that. My guess is that as they continue to go through the building, they will find more stuff that may need to be addressed. Even with phase 1 not complete, they have started phase 2, but once again, some of the parts ordered are a month out. I spoke to the contractor this morning. He believes the project should be complete by late October. I also spoke with the DSS director today, and even though they're a ways away from being complete, he said they've already noticed a difference. So that was good news. Now I'll try to answer any questions you may have, and I've actually brought our maintenance technician, Alston Mosteller, with me today. Alston has served as point man on this project. He's not only has a number of certifications in air conditioning and heating, but a diploma as well. And not only that, he actually teaches air conditioning at Caldwell Community College, so I consider him a valuable asset to the county.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Any question on this item?
Mark, I have one. Everybody's experiencing not getting the equipment they ordered on time. And I just wondered, this may be a JR question also, but can we not start putting a penalty on delays in orders?
I believe a lot of the orders were out of their control as far as receiving them. They, just everything is slowed down. And it's getting better, though, as I understand, but back when this project started, it was probably at its worst case.
Well, if we put a $100 fine for each week they're delayed, 7 days. You reckon that would expedite some orders?
Well, a lot of contracts are signed with liquidated damages for delays, without any reasonable reasoning behind it. So I would certainly foresee that as possible.
Okay.
Mr. Taylor, one problem that you do have is that if it's COVID-related, it usually falls under the act of God exception, which excuses performance in matters of disasters and wars and things like that. So they could probably fall back upon that even if we had that in there. But it's a good thing to put in. Doesn't hurt.
JR, I agree with that, but I do know from firsthand experience from other people that some people are offering cash to get put ahead of other customers. And I'd just like for us to stop that if it's going on with some of the people who are providing Burke County with goods. If that's happening, we need to stop it. And that would stop it. Thank you.
Any other question? Mark, I think you answered this somewhat already, but of course, this has been an area that we've had lots and lots of complaints about. So are you hearing any positive comments out of the folks?
Yes, I spoke to
actually work
DSS Corey today, and he says he's already noticed a difference. You may know there's a couple other projects that have gone on over there with the bathroom and some offices, and they're well pleased with what they're getting right now. And I think he'd affirm that if you spoke to him. So,
You're not getting complaints, right?
no, sir, not yet.
All right, very good. All right. Thank you, Mark. With no other comments, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 9, also coming from General Services, reclassification of a position, and this also comes from Mark Delahunt. Mark?
Yes, as you can see, I'm requesting that a current facilities maintenance vacancy be reclassified or relabeled actually from a licensed electrician to a lead facilities maintenance technician. The licensed electrician position has only been filled once, and that was for 2 weeks as it was approved in 2019 budget. I've been here since March, and in that time, there have only been 2 occasions when we had to hire a licensed electrician. However, I've seen several instances where we would have greatly benefited from not only another set of hands, but also a team leader that would prioritize and assign the daily work assignments. This individual would also be able to address the work orders as they came in throughout the day, and those that are of an urgent nature. Basically, the team leader would provide day-to-day operational guidance in addition to participating in those projects. This position change, if approved, would not only give us another set of hands, but would also allow us to make better use of the hands we have. I'm happy to take your questions.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions on this item? Hear none, this item will remain on as consent agenda. Thank you, Mark. Item number 10 comes from Human Resources, Detention Officer Recruitment Update. Comes from Rhonda Lee. Afternoon, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Feel like a teacher handing out papers today. But thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Let me take this off. We are glad to be here today to present to you, and I have a whole bunch of folks here behind me to back up if you have any additional questions that maybe I cannot answer. Before we get started, this is the presentation that I wanted to share with you guys, but I wanted to introduce you to Alex Roney. Alex is our new staff recruitment and development specialist, so he's put a lot of time and work into this, so, we're just glad to have Alex with us. He's been with us since May, so just want to be sure you guys had met Alex. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get started on the first page of the presentation. The commissioners back in March 16th, approved several different items to help in the aid in recruiting detention officers for the Burke County Sheriff's Office. And one of those was to increase the salaries by 5% for detention officers, and that was effective in April of 2021, April the 3rd. So that pay increase went into effect then. And then we established a retention bonus program that is in place. That is the where if the detention officers are in their role for a year, they're eligible for a $600 retention bonus the first year, and then $1,200 for the second year that they're with us. We've not made it through the first year yet with that, so there's been no payouts on retention bonuses at this time. We did reinstate the part-time detention officer positions. There were 15 of those in a prior budget year, and we did reinstate those as well. And then, of course, we created the position that Alex is now occupying as the Staff Recruitment and Development Specialist. So if you go to the next page, this is a list of the efforts that we've gone through since really May, since we met with you guys and got Alex on board. But again, we increased the pay by 5%. We started the retention bonus program. We reinstated the part-time positions and brought Alex on board. We posted these positions to various places. We've posted them to Indeed. That is normally where we post a lot of our positions because there's no cost. We posted it on Facebook, the Burke County website, NC Works. We've worked with the NAACP and Olive Hill Economic Development. We send all of our job postings to those folks as well. We've sent postings through the Chamber of Commerce, and that was really promoting a job fair that we had back in July. We have job postings at Veteran Services, Western Piedmont Community College, CVCC, Caldwell Community College, and AB Tech in Asheville. And we're continuously looking for places to post these positions, so we're looking at different colleges and places to post as well. In fact, Alex and Lorinda, who's back here, who's our HR assistant, she posted on the Craigslist this last go, and we actually have gotten a few applications through Craigslist. So that's very new for us. We've never done that before. So we're just trying every avenue we can to get the word out. So that's where we've posted it. Alex worked hard with Banks and the staff at the Sheriff's Office to coordinate a job fair at the Foothills Higher Ed Center that was held on July the 15th. You may have heard an advertisement for that on the local radio stations. We had that sent out, and that was Alex working through that process as well. So that happened in July. Didn't have a lot of participation in that, so we were very disappointed in the turnout for it. But we are aware through working with Employment Security that job fairs just aren't getting people out like they used to. So that's not uncommon to see that, but we're utilizing everything we can to get the word out. We designed and mailed basically 2,500 recruitment postcards, and if you flip through, it's the next page on your presentation. Those went out to a list that was provided by the Sheriff's Office, so those were sent out on August the 20th. Just to get the word out to our community partners as well. And we've also created signs, and that is the next page. And these have been placed in strategic locations throughout the county to let people know that we're looking to hire detention officers as well as other positions throughout the county. And let's see what else we've got here. We continue to research all the time because we're trying to think outside the box, and we're looking at what other folks are doing as well to get the word out and to get folks to apply for these positions. And we are providing exit interviews for the detention officers who voluntarily resigned. So any questions on any of the efforts that we've made so far? Okay.
Rhonda, any success with part-time folks?
We haven't so far. Okay, the page after the sign, it says recruitment statistics. This is where we are right now. So we have received approximately 300 resumes since May for these positions. And we have hired 12 detention officers since May, and 3 are pending to start in September. So we've got 12 that we have hired. We've also, in that same time period, we've had 7 resignations, 1 retirement, and 1 dismissal since May. We still have 15 full-time detention officer vacancies and 1 full-time detention officer corporal vacancy available right now. And I'll be willing to take any questions you may have, and of Alex and of the folks from the sheriff's office.
All right, thank you, Rhonda. Any questions for Rhonda on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I have several, even though we're just now getting this information, and it's under consent agenda, so we don't get to ask questions during our regular meeting. One of the questions, and this is a repeat question, Rhonda, never did get the full impact of the multiple raises and increases that we've given over the last couple of years. The sheriff, I think I asked for it for 3 years. I see you hired 12 detention officers. How many did we lose during the period we hired 12? What did we gain?
That's what I just shared, that we've lost 9.
That's
9. 9.
9.
Yeah.
Of those 7 resignations, Rhonda, how many of those were, of the 12 were hired, or were those other folks who were already employed, some of those? Do you have any idea?
They were kind of mixed. There was a mixture in there. I'd say maybe half and half of the ones that we hired and the ones that left. Alex, does that sound about right?
Mr. Chairman, so the 7 resignations, 1 retired, and 1 dismissal all came out of the detention officers. Is that correct?
Well, the 1 retirement was a lieutenant.
15 full-time detention officers vacancy? Out of 300 resumes, I'm trying to add my mind, I'm sorry. We hired 10 or 11, is that correct? Out of 300?
Yes.
Do you have a list of why they were declined? Not qualified, I guess, would be the first one.
Well, when we receive resumes, that's through Indeed. Most likely it's through Indeed. And those are just people submitting their resume for it. And what Alex does, Alex takes those resumes and he contacts those people. A lot of times they won't answer the phone or they won't call back. So there's a lot of that. So he's screening that for the sheriff's office right now.
So a big part of those 300 could probably be classified. I'm saying I applied for this job so I can continue to get my free check.
That could be.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Exit interviews indicate anything?
The exit interviews that we've had so far, they indicate that they're lacking, I think the way to say it would be recognition. There's recognition and training are some of the things that they really bring up. Lack of training, especially for the new hires coming in. That's some of the things that we're seeing, is that there is they're wanting more training and more recognition.
Do they understand that there's a training protocol to go through? Do they know that?
Yes, sir.
So when they ask for more training, did you dig down a little deeper to see what that actually meant?
They're really talking about when they're first there, like their first couple of weeks, is that they're wanting more, I guess, the one-on-one training Some of the folks have stated that when they come in, that they are on the first shift for a short period of time, and then they go to the evening shift, and that there's a little difference between, I guess, how things are operated. This is what they're saying on the exit interviews, is that there's a little difference between how things are on first and second, and so when they get to second shift, they feel a little ill-equipped on second shift, or the night shift.
Okay.
Have we drilled down into what can we do to mitigate that? What can happen?
I think the focus, as you can see, and we've talked a lot in our office about this and with Banks and the sheriff, is that we've really got to focus on the retention part of it, because you can see we're getting the people in the door, but we just got to be able to hold on to them. So that's our main focus, is really on the retention side of it. And that's just going to take a lot of collaboration between us and the sheriff's office to do that. Building those programs where the people are really, they feel supported during those first few weeks. And these guys are working shorthanded, I understand that. But we've got to have some type of program to make those people feel more, I guess, prepared and ready to do the job.
Are we still at market or beyond market?
Yeah, we're still at, market average
Still at market average?
right now.
Okay.
We keep an eye on that.
Okay. Has anybody said anything about the benefits packages during their exit interviews? Anything there?
Our benefits packages are usually ranked pretty high. So that doesn't seem to be the area of concern on the benefits side.
So you're ranking training as number one?
Training, recognition, on-the-job recognition.
Recognition, did you boil down to see what recognition they were looking for?
The support from supervisors and administration.
Any examples that you can share?
Yeah, a lot of these we can't share.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one more? Rhonda, if I'm going to apply to be a sheriff deputy, what kind of resume or questionnaire are you going to give me to fill out?
I can probably let Banks and Alex speak to that more than I can, because they deal with that on a daily basis. You guys want to step up and tell them about the packet and everything?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you apply for both of those jobs, the detention officer and the deputy, the same way. There's an application checklist that we give them that they have to return. It contains a Burke County application packet, a North Carolina Sheriff Standards F3, which is a personal history statement. It's about 16 pages long. And I did want to clear up one thing about the 300 resumes. You post those resumes online, and that doesn't necessarily mean you've applied. It does give Alex a way to reach out to you and say, we would like for you to apply, which he's done a great job of that. I'd like to give Alex an applause. He's done a good job. He's done a good job of communicating with the sheriff's office and reaching out and trying to bring some people in. But that packet I was talking about, there's a lot to that. And I spend a good bit of my time when they bring that packet in, just going through that, making sure they have everything that they need. Making sure that that application packet is filled out properly. And sometimes I will spend another 30 minutes with them just getting those questions answered the way we would like them answered, and Sheriff Standards requires them to be answered. And I would say that, to answer your question, maybe 2 or 3 people since May we have disqualified because of criminal history or past, maybe a bad prior work history. Only 3. Everybody else that they have brought to us with a complete application packet has made it through.
Well, I understand, and you have one of the toughest jobs in the world right now, probably even worse than even being a sheriff or deputy or major or whatever, is the fact that the condition of the world right now. Nobody really wants to be a sheriff, because when you're trying to protect the children, the citizens, you're all of a sudden being accused of things yourself. But my purpose for the question was to help y'all, because 10 or 12 out of 300 is not a good record. And I'm not the smartest individual in the world, but I used to recruit about all the time, in a different field, obviously, little different techniques, but it's all the same thing. And I'm just wondering if we needed, the reason for the question is to relook at that application. And if you don't have these qualifications, you shouldn't be able, I shouldn't be able to fill out an application and tell the government that I tried to get hired, when really my whole purpose was to not work next month and get another check. So I was just looking at a way that we might critique that application a little bit and get it down to where, if you don't have these qualifications, you will not be considered.
The North Carolina Sheriff Standards, the F3, the personal history statement, that is a state, that's the application that you have to fill out for any law enforcement agency across the state. Criminal Standards has the same application. There are a few questions I think that are different, but it's the same 16-page application packet for certification. And that would take some folks in Raleigh changing that application, Commissioner Taylor, to fix that one. That's not up to us. That's a state standard.
Well, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
I'm going to go back to Rhonda.
Yes, sir.
Good report and understand the numbers. What's the next strategy?
Well, the next strategy is to work closely with the sheriff's office on the retention component of it. Right now, we've been focusing, Alex, HR, has been focusing on bringing the people in, bringing the candidates in, but we really have to focus on keeping them here. And so we've got to work collaboratively on that. Thank you, Johnny. To get that to work as far
So
as
what's your
retention.
major strategy for retention?
The strategy is training. That will be training with the supervisors there. It will be working with, and I haven't spoken with these guys yet about that, but it would be working with the captain to make sure that he understands the feedback on the exit interviews and that kind of thing as well, focusing on employee recognition and just the onboarding process. That's the strategy at this time. But we still have to keep on, with the recruitment part of it. And that's what Alex is doing every day with calling these folks, scheduling them to help them with the paperwork, passing it along to the major for his consideration.
How are we comparing with surrounding counties versus vacancies? Do we know?
I do not know that, but I
Okay.
can find that
No.
for you. Yeah, I can check.
They're probably having the same problem that we're having right now. They're sitting here having the same meeting, trying to define the same strategies. I want us to make sure we stay at market so that we can attract as many people or applicants. Maybe the fact that with the unemployment leaving, the $300 leaving, maybe people will decide they need to go back to work. God, I hope they do anyway.
Yeah.
Because everybody's needing employees right now, so maybe that will get somebody to take a look at us, but.
And we're not in, like you said, Commissioner Carswell, we're not in this alone. You see the signs that everybody's trying to hire right now, and opening the jail right when COVID happened, that didn't make it any easier with this effort. But we're not going to give up. We're going to keep on, and we're going to do everything we can to get it staffed.
So as we think about the training process, what time frame are you seeing at this point? Folks, are we keeping them on first shift 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then boom, or what's the time frame? How does that run?
From what we're gleaning from the exit interviews, and I think Captain Huntley can speak better to that, it looks to be, 2 weeks on the day shift?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
But we're thinking probably we're gonna have to spend some more time on day or something to get folks more comfortable before we move on with them to somewhere else. Is that what perhaps we're gonna think about?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, first I'd like to stress the fact that when we say 2 weeks, what that means for a working person is 7 days. Because the schedule that we work, you're only working 14 days a month. So when we start talking to that and extrapolate it out, it takes months to get what we would consider a reasonable amount of days in an average job that you showed up and got training or on-the-job training or so on and so forth. So we have to really make sure that that's emphasized. With that said, the first couple of days we usually spend taking care of administrative stuff. HR has an array of things. We have to travel to Hickory to get uniforms, get fitted. So we've spent a couple of days just taking care of those items. And then we turn them over to one of the shift sergeants or corporals and introduce them to the basic. I want to know where the employee entrance door is, and I want to know where the fire alarms and the fire extinguishers are. That's about what we're going to get out of the next couple of days. So it takes a long time to get what they would probably consider training. And at some point, I'm a firm believer of working off of seniority. So if I've got somebody that's been on night shift for 2 years and we hire somebody, they're aching to move on, moving today. So at some point, usually within about the first couple of 3 weeks, we're going to transition them to night shift. And it is different, day shift and night shift. It's a jail, but it's day and night. Two totally different beasts to deal with. So in a nutshell, that's what they're seeing. If I could say, most of them that are leaving prior to they get what they would consider reasonable training or jail school certification, most of the folks that we're losing, I'm not losing them to Caldwell, McDowell, Catawba. I'm losing them to FedEx and UPS and pick somewhere else. We're not losing them to this profession because I think in a matter of weeks they've realized this probably wasn't my calling.
All right. So we've still got a challenge before us to figure out how to make them feel better before they leave, hopefully, and we'll see how it goes. So keep at it. That's all we can ask. Other questions?
Yeah, let me ask, is all sheriff department on the detention side on 12-hour days? Does some have 8-hour shifts?
I'm sure there probably are some of the bigger facilities, Charlotte, Meck, I think they do run a floater shift, but that's a 3,200 bed plus. I don't know of any of our surrounding counties that do anything other than the traditional 12s.
May I ask an opinion? I don't expect a fact out of this. In your opinion, do you think that would ease the situation some or make it more difficult?
I don't know that it would ease anything. I think you'd still have, there's a risk that you'd have that same group of people saying, why didn't I get to be that 8-hour floater or the midday floater? And again, I truly work off of seniority. So we all, you have to be there a minute to earn those benefits, as I see it. But I don't see any, personally, I don't see an impact or immediate impact if we went to some other shift arrangement than what we have. And right now with the staffing, I don't have the capability to do that anyway.
All right, thank y'all. Thank you for that report. Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This brings us to item number 11, Tax Department Tax Collection Report for August 2021. This will be presented by our Tax Administrator, Danny Eisenhower. Afternoon, Danny.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Start with the tax collection report. This is for the period between July 1st and August 31. Property tax, we've collected 67.22%. Motor vehicles, 19.12. Together, that's at 62.24% collected. Delinquent taxes, 28.85% collected. Late list penalty, 23.69%. And when we look at property tax only compared to the levy, we're at 68.32%.
All right, thank you, Danny. Any questions for Danny on this report? Seeing none, this item will maintain itself on the consent agenda. Thank you, Danny. And item number 12, also coming from the Tax Department, release refund report.
Yes, this will be for August. We have releases in the amount of $1,103.78. We had $8.76 rebilled, which gives us a net release of $1,095.02. We have $144.87 in refunds. Then when we look at the vehicle tax system, we have refunds in the amount of $115.76.
All right, thank you, Danny. Any questions on the release refund report? Seeing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Right, item 6 on the agenda, items for decision. I have several items today. Item 1 comes from this board, proclamation of September 11th as Day of Remembrance, the 20th anniversary. And I want to take just a moment to call your attention to that, gentlemen. And I'm going to ask you also to consider taking action on this item today and suspend our normal rules of procedure, since this would be already passed by the time of our next meeting. So we'll run a little bit behind on this proclamation, but I want to take a few minutes to read most of this proclamation, because I think it's important that we take just a few moments to remember what happened on September 11th, 2001. Whereas in an unprovoked and senseless act of terrorism, 4 civilian aircraft were hijacked on September 11th, 2001 and crashed into New York City, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon, resulting in a momentous loss of innocent U.S. lives of all heritages. And I think most of us can think back and remember where we were that day, what we were doing. Whereas Eric A. Cranford grew up in Drexel, North Carolina. After graduating from college with a double major, he embarked upon a military career with the United States Navy and served 2 tours in the Persian Gulf as a helicopter pilot. Lieutenant Commander Eric Cranford was on active duty at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. when hijacked American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the building. Tragically, the Cranford family and Burke County citizens lost one of their own that day. His death will never be forgotten. And whereas, while we still continue to recover from the loss of innocent lives, the spirit of the United States has been revitalized, giving way to expressions of patriotism. And whereas, inspired by the heroism of our nation's public service personnel, military service members, and countless volunteers, our nation found unity and strength. And whereas from the tragedy of September 11 emerged a stronger nation, renewed by the spirit of national pride and a true love of country. And whereas Americans also have fought back against terror by choosing to overcome evil with good, by loving their neighbors as they would like to be loved, contributing to relief efforts, and volunteering their time to aid those in need. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of Commissioners of Burke County, do hereby proclaim September the 11th, 2021 as the 20th anniversary of the attacks of 9/11, and urge our citizens to recognize the heroism of firefighters, rescue and law enforcement personnel, military service members, and the many volunteers who respond to these tragic events with courage, selfless compassion, determination, and skill, and to remember the victims and innocent lives lost as a result of the tragic events on September 11th, 2001. So, gentlemen, there's the proclamation that I would ask you to consider, and ask that we suspend the rules of procedure and approve this proclamation today. Gentlemen, you've heard the proclamation.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. Any comments or questions on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I didn't find my thick book, but I think anytime you do this, you need to state the reason of, which needs to be part of your motion, and if Wayne would allow, just because the 20th anniversary of 9/11 terrorist attack is 10 days before the regular meeting date, September 21. I move to suspend the rules and procedures and approve the proclamation, which Wayne has. Is that good?
Okay, so you've heard the amended motion. Any other comment? Hearing none, we've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. Madam Clerk, that's 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. This brings us to item number 2, comes from the Clerk, Board of Health Removal and Appointment. This will be presented by Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Adriana Morris occupied seat number 11, which is an at-large seat, on the Board of Health until her recent resignation. Therefore, we are requesting her removal, and at this time, we have 2 applications on file for this seat for your consideration, which has an unexpired term ending December 31st, 2022. The applications on file is Rebecca Schlein or Gwen Stevens, and it would be to fill seat number 11, which is an at-large seat, for the remainder of a term ending December 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gentlemen, you've heard the information. We'll actually vote on one of these 2 or perhaps another's that may arrive between now and our regular meeting. Any questions on this matter? Hearing none, this item will remain on our decision agenda. Item number 3 comes from Finance, approval of ARP purchase. This will come from our Deputy County Manager, Margaret Pierce, and also I think perhaps Mr. Manager has a few comments he'd like to make on this item as well. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, at our last meeting, y'all gave us some direction, and staff took it that we really can't do much of anything until the board approves it, and I'm asking, because some of the projects are really time sensitive when we're looking at HVAC. I think they're all acceptable that we're talking about. The finance folks have looked at that. I'm concerned about being able to find contractors in a timely manner, and then to get the kinds of parts and equipment that we need. I don't know what your luck is like, but mine would be like, oh, well, it's going to be 12 weeks before we get it here, and we'd be pushing into the beginning of cold weather. So that if there's anything that can be done to allow us the flexibility, or maybe we just misperceived what the board's desire was, I'd like to go ahead and move forward as quickly as possible through the normal procurement process. I have up to $90,000 authority to approve contracts. If these, again, are your desire to move forward with these today, I mean, when we meet in September at our regular meeting. But again, I'm just a little uneasy about time and potential problems, delays in getting equipment that we would need. And I was telling Mr. Chairman that the boiler down at the sheriff's office in the Burke had some real problems last year. I'd like to find a solution, if it means a significant change of how that operates, that also would enable the separation of one section from the other to be a little more palatable for us to move forward with the potential regional facility, being able to separate bills and things like that, if it's possible. It may be that the building design is such, and we're actually going to be meeting with some folks tomorrow to look at what the real options are. But again, if the board is so inclined to give us a little latitude on these first couple of HVAC projects, and I think you've got a couple of pumping stations that are pretty much in the realm of they're acceptable to the rules that the federal government has given us. And when we look at it in totality, the amounts of money we're talking about would be a reasonably small percentage of the total funds that are available to us. And I understand the board wants to give opportunity to evaluate some other types of uses of the money for what you believe is in the best interest of the county. So again, if the board is so inclined to either clear up or give us some flexibility, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Before I comment, Margaret, anything you want to say there? Or? Okay. Gentlemen, I think I did have an opportunity to speak with Brian some about this, and they were just concerned among staff that maybe we wanted to see every minute detail of this before they carried on, but I think what they are asking, I think, is really what my read on the board was, and please state your feeling here. I think, we need staff to go ahead and be getting quotes and those kind of things, and bring those to us. I know that the board, I believe, wanted to have some final say, and before we started spending millions of dollars. So, but we do have several big projects, and we know that this ARP money is going to, well, it's already flowed all over the state, so there's going to be projects everywhere that are going to be out for bid, and folks are going to be ahead of us if we don't allow staff to at least be moving along here and getting some quotes and bids and bringing those to us on a timely fashion. So
Jeff, there's a limit on this money anyways, right?
well, of course, there's all kind of rules. Right, of course, Brian's got the $90,000 limit on contracts he'd have to bring to us no matter what.
Right.
But I think this board wanted to, see these projects enough ahead so that if we said, well, no, we don't want to do that, we'd like that opportunity. But at the same time, we need staff to be working, getting information, getting quotes, getting bids, and so that we can not get too far behind in this process.
Well, there's so much shortage with labor and companies and everything else. I think we should go ahead and do it.
Any other
Mr. Chairman,
concerns?
one of the things that I suggested, and I don't back down from that suggestion, I think it just makes common sense. I'd like to see this board have a work session, and we need to prioritize. I don't know how much money will go how far, but we need to prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if it goes that far. And from that working, we would all have the opportunity to have input and to see exactly what the funds are coming, are going to benefit.
And Commissioner Taylor, I think the way I envision that is, I almost envision us having this discussion monthly as we're moving forward. There's so much of this money and so many projects, and the numbers of things that we need to be looking at. So I think this board's going to have that opportunity, and probably going to be on a monthly basis for quite some time moving forward, until just like you say, till we see how it's going to run out at some point. But right now, there's quite a magnitude of money, and we just need to not get behind, 99 other counties in getting out in the marketplace for some of these things that we know we're going to need. And let me encourage you and all of us as commissioners, if there are things that you see or that you want us to address, please be sure that you move those forward to either myself or Brian or Margaret or staff, so that they can be making determinations about what's eligible, what's not. I know we've had a time to share last month about what areas that you feel you'd like for us to look at. So don't stop with that. Continue to bring those ideas forward, and we want to try to make the best of these funds as possible.
Well, I would remind you, Mr. Chairman, that those 99 other counties are thinking and saying the same thing.
Exactly.
And I think it behooves us, one of the things that talking ethical about is that everybody gets a fair chance, meaning we don't get the best deal if we don't bid them off and allow other people to participate. And it's going to take a process. And I think we have capable hands on duty to handle that process. And I think that we have the intelligence of this board and the staff to handle what's before us, and we need to do it in a way that's fair to the citizens of Burke County and fair to everybody else concerned. So that's the reason for my thoughts of making sure that we have the input and the communications we need to go forward.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Margaret, Brian, does that seem to give you the direction?
I think so. So what I envision bringing back to you in 2 weeks is perhaps some quotes so that we could move forward with some of the EMS equipment to get our ambulances up to date and get them some additional equipment that ordered at least, because we are hearing that everything's going to take probably months to come in. So the sooner we can get orders placed. So they're working to get me actual numbers, hopefully by this Friday, so we can send them out ahead to you so you can look at those and be comfortable with what we're buying for EMS equipment to stock the ambulances with some new things and some replacement things to help them be as equipped as they can be going out. The other thing is we'd like for Mark to be able to proceed with getting actual quotes on the pump replacements for those sewer stations, because again, those all take a significant amount of time, but we want to go ahead and get that equipment ordered. But we haven't gone through the full-on bid process with these because we wanted to make sure you were comfortable with those projects. The Indian Hill pump station and the Allen Creek pump station, getting those up to speed, renovated, and working appropriately, increasing the capacity of Indian Hills where we continue to have violations. That's probably a 2-year project. So we definitely would like to get that bid out completely with engineering and everything. It all would have to come back for actual approval when we have numbers, but I need to know that you're okay with those projects before we spend the time getting engineers on board and all that stuff. Are those sound like ones you're okay with us proceeding with?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
Wayne, you and I both were witness. How many times have we done the Indian pump station? And every time we did it, we'd never have to fix it again. And are you telling me we're looking at doing something else to that pump station?
I'm not familiar with a history on the pump station. I can tell you that we have overflows and violations there when we have significant weather events, and we have to do something there.
What was the
It's been
cost? Do you
estimated
remember?
at $2.9 million to redo everything and increase the size of it.
Mr. Stein, do you remember?
I know there's been some repairs and other things done at some of these different stations. I don't remember exactly what they've been, but over time, things wear out. We've had some failures or breakdowns, and I think you always want to have a backup pump in case the main pump goes out. So it's you know.
Madam Clerk, we had a ribbon cutting, you were sick. Do you remember the date we did that?
That was Eckerd Creek.
Yeah, but that's the Indian Hill pump station.
No, that's Eckerd Creek Pump Station.
Eckers. Okay, where's Indian Hill then? Remind me.
Well, I don't know, but it's not there.
That would be the final part of the whole system. Indian Hills, maybe one reason they're having trouble with it is because it's the final link of our system. Okay, excuse me. Yeah, Indian Hills, Indian Hills, one of the reasons you're probably having so much trouble with it. It's the final leg of our entire system. All the other pump stations, the Eckerd Creek and I can't remember the name, but anyway, they all pump to Indian Hills. So anything they pump is combined and then some extra and goes from Indian Hills before it becomes somebody else's problem. And it is sitting right next to a creek. When the creek overflows, it gets in there. It's just, it needs some attention so we can alleviate any future.
And the cost of this attention?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
What's the cost of this attention?
We don't know. The exact solution, we have a rough estimate is what it might be, which is $2.9 million. And that's more than just the station. That's some system improvements in that general vicinity as well. We had a recent storm in November. It wiped the thing out.
Brian, I understand why you'd like to sell the sewage system. I can't believe the double money we have spent since I have been on board for the sewer system. And every time we fix it, every time. We'll never have to do nothing again to that station. And here we are again, and the bill is 2.9 million.
The thinking is we're going to come in with a third pump and maybe even a reservoir to hold when the heavy rain, so it can be gradually pumped rather than try to be all pumped at once.
Mark, is that lines also?
Excuse
Is
me?
that lines in that?
Yeah, there's some lines that's included. That 2.9 million quote, we don't know where it's going to come in exactly, but we need to do some engineering work first, and we're just trying to get on the front end of all that. This is something, in reviewing the most recent sewer system inspections by the state, this is one of the things that was noted over and over to be an issue. And we're just trying to address that along with some other issues.
Mr. Chairman, I hope you appreciate my play on words. This is enough to give a good, healthy man a heart attack. So I think you understand that this is just, you look at your taxpayers and you answer the questions, and why are they going to spend that other money? We failed the first time around. We failed the second time around, and I guess we're going to get the third time around. I don't know, but it's the only, I guess, good thing about it is that we are using funds that's provided through ARP program, and I guess that's a good thing, but it's still, what would it do somewhere else if we didn't have to do that, is my point. How far would it go somewhere else if that didn't have to have that attention, as Margaret said, so. That's enough for me.
All right, thank you. And I think based on the rules, we all agree that water and sewer is one of the primary areas that the federal government has said this money can be spent for. And so given that, this, is not all the money, but it's a nice little chunk. But I think we would all agree Indian Creek needs to be dealt with. And so unless I hear objection, I think we need to.
Mr. Chairman, I guess we've been down there about 3 times. Mayor and I have been down there as we did repairs or put new pumps in there. I'd just like to see us get something done down there, but I don't know about a guarantee or something, but it just seems like it fails continually. It just seems like over the last 19 years we've had, I've heard Indian Hills so many times, and we've been down there, talked to the neighbors and everything else, and I just wish we could get it fixed and forget about it.
Right. Mark, would it be possible to maybe get a history together of where we've spent money in the past?
Probably find that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar since I've been here, anything big at Indian Hills at all, other than tiny things to limp it along. One thing this should do is increase capacity. So hopefully, Mr. Abley, that will mean we don't come back and keep fixing things. And we're actually talking about redoing it.
It's been a constant thing for the last 19 years.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You don't want to keep throwing good money after bad. So if we definitely want to look at a solution, and unfortunately that's part of this cost, is looking at basically gutting it and starting over, redoing the lines coming in to make sure they're at the right capacity. I believe this changes the size of the lines, if I'm not mistaken.
That's proposed.
This was something that West had worked on a few years back and then was able to kind of update, just to give us an idea. This is one that they feel like is critical to our system's continued success, is trying to get this station to where it needs to be. And it also, the state is getting more and more anxious for us to deal with this. So being able to do it through these funds, although I know it's a large piece of them, is better than us having to look toward our system users or our citizens for these funds, was the thought process behind including this significant project here.
I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think over the years that I've been on the board, we've heard the name Indian Creek a lot in relation to penalty, problem, but we've spent a lot of our monies, I think, elsewhere, which has truthfully probably just made this matter worse because there's more capacity. Other places just gives more capacity to send on down the tube. But nonetheless, the name just keeps coming around. But it'd be interesting to know where we've actually spent our money, if you could give us that information.
You're talking about as far as this station alone or all the
No,
stations?
from the system, I know, like we were just discussing, Ecker Creek was the last thing we spent a good amount of money on. And sounds like that's ahead of Indian Creek. And
There could be some confusion. One is called Island Creek, the other one Indian Hills. And there's been some money spent on both of them. So with that confusion, maybe that's part of the reason I know
give us a
they've
little
spent a lot.
diagram,
Yeah, we can come up with something, should be able to, that kind of gives all the names of the 5 sewer stations. There's water stations as well, but maybe a little bit about when they were built and when they were major renovated, those type of things, if that would help. But this is one that by the time you do engineering and things, we wanted to go ahead and try to get some quotes and bids together for you to look at, and obviously no approval or nothing would proceed until it comes back. But we didn't want to spend any time with engineers or Mark having to put together a bunch of things if this wasn't one you were interested in.
well,
If I'm not, Mr. Chairman, if I'm not mistaken, all of it ends up down at Hickory's processing place anyhow, doesn't it?
Pretty much,
Or Valdez.
yeah.
And, we spent money on getting to that too, way back when. But Mark, what I'd like to see is some positive stuff. Let's spend as much money on getting people who need water, a basic living need, as we do on putting money in sewage places. Maybe we can get
We're
it.
going to do all we can within the guidelines of these funds that are available, so.
Mr. Carson.
The report is there. It's been presented to us. We've had the diagrams. We know where they are. It's in the minutes way back, and we've talked about this. This is the end of the line, and we knew that this station, it was built in the wrong place to begin with. Thank you, sir. It was built in the wrong place to begin with. So we're going to have to fix it, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. Let me go back to the ARP funds. Have we any idea yet what we can spend the rest of the monies on? We know the broad parameters and water sewers and that broad parameter. We still don't know what the
They're
small.
not even giving guesstimate dates on those final rules now. They gave up giving us dates.
Okay. So what I'd like for us to do is make sure that we keep some monies aside for some of those things. I've turned in my list to Jeff to what I'd like to see happen, but don't know if it's going to be approved for it to happen. So I hope we can hold on, and I don't think we're going to set a percentage of what we need to hold on to, but I hope we hold on to some, take care of those things like Maynard Dwayne said. Let's fix that station down there once and for all, get it done, get it over with. There is monies that we still can get. We got the $2 million grant to put down Highway 18. There's still grants out there to get water that I hope we go for again this year, because we haven't put in a grant request. COG stood up here and told us the amount of monies that are available. Let's get grant requests in for that money for water for people that need the water, because I agree with Commissioner Taylor. There's people around here that need water really, really bad. So that would be my only request. I have no problem, going out and making sure that like you say, that all the other counties are going to be out there trying to get engineers and everything too, and construction people to do the work. But I still like to know what we're going to be able to ask for as quickly as we can figure that. I went through the frequently asked questions. I know what the broad scope is. Let's do the broad scope first, what we can do, fix what we can't fix.
What we're looking at is a very small portion of these funds at this point. It would be, certainly there's going to be funds depending on what things. What we're doing is trying to put you together something that shows, based on, Scott's been working on this and doing an amazing job, taking everything we're hearing and going through piece by piece each document we've got and putting what page we find it on, or what frequently asked question says, yes, this is definitely allowed, or wait, no, this is definitely not. And we're checking with some state resources and everything they've given us as a resource, and trying to bring you back something that kind of details that for you that might help. It's just a cumbersome process, and we're still, sadly, in the early days of this, although we feel like we're running behind already in a lot of ways. We're in the beginning of this kind of lengthy process, and it just takes a lot of time trying to fit this in with the other things going on. But we are working. We hope to have something to give you with that next meeting like that, Commissioner Carswell, that I think might help you kind of look at that and see. And yes, please send so that we can research it. If there's things you want us particularly looking at, make sure that we get those so we can go through and add them to the wish list and put them in there. What we'll also bring back, I'll work with the county attorney if that's acceptable. The way we wrote that grant ordinance doesn't fit what you're saying today, so we will need to adjust that language that we don't need to come for everything. You're saying that we can come for the large items and work within our normal purchasing guidelines, or you still want things up at any point? That's what I need to know, because we wrote that we can't do anything without coming to the board for approval.
Rephrase that question one more time.
The grant ordinance was written that we cannot spend a penny without coming to the board, without prior approval. Some of these smaller, when we come back, would it be appropriate to bring language that defines the $90,000 or some other dollar amount based on generally approved projects of some kind? I know we're going to update you more frequently, but if I don't bring it in 2 weeks, it'll be another month before I could bring that. We would be kind of still spinning our wheels. So I want to make sure that we're doing what you want, but also staying within the grant ordinance. So help me understand where you want us on that.
I don't think it was our intent that you not be able to do anything. Of course, maybe we need to word it differently. I mean, I think this board wants to have some final say in, before we spend, millions of dollars. But, do we want to give some smaller amount that we?
What I'd like to know, Jeff, is over the years I've heard Indian Hills, Maine, and I've heard Indian Hills so many times. What is the problem down there? We've spent a lot of money down there in the past. I don't know anything about it. Are we undersized, oversized? What is the problem? And we need to fix the problem so this doesn't come up continually year after year after year.
Right, and that we're going to get that information. But I think what Margaret's asking for is the art money in general. What is it, $18 million? What's the number, Margaret?
17.7, yeah.
Yeah, $17.7 million. The way we worded the
Grant ordinance
was that the way the staff is reading it, they can't do anything. And I don't know what anything means to you, but I think what anything meant to us was, you guys go ahead and get all the numbers you can and bring them back to us, and we're going to keep it moving. Now, if anything to you meant we can't even work on getting numbers, then that's not, I don't think, was the intent of the board. I think the intent of the board was, do all the work you need to do, and keep it moving and bring it for us for a yes or no. Do you feel like you needed some change in language to make?
We need to go back and look at the grant ordinance, because I believe the way it was worded was that no funds would be spent of any kind without board prior approval. I think it was basically how that was written. So in order to even, say, do advertisements for bids, if we were going to spend, because those are covered under here, or if we have to take care of a COVID positive patient in the hotel, those kind of things would be eligible under these funds. That might be, something we would want to be able to do, but we don't want to step outside of what you wanted. So we can certainly proceed with getting quotes on any of the things unless there was some strong objection to something we had on our list. We just didn't want to spend a lot of time getting quotes if you didn't want those things.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I said we ought to have a meeting and iron out our priorities, and the way you do that is and we're going to go with 10. We don't know if we can get the top 10 priorities, but if you go with number 10, and we look at those and we decide what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you as a staff have been granted permission to begin the process on those 5. When you finish one of those 5, you get to go move up to number 6, and you have a evolving system that allows you leverage funds to do the process till we're done, till we spend all the money. When you spend all the money, you're done.
Mr. Chairman, right now, we don't have a lot of the rules. The ones we do have, we had that workshop about what projects we felt would work under the rules as we understand them at this time. And as those rules develop, there'll be other opportunities to come back to the board and say, these are other project areas, and I think that can all fit together. But right now, what we've got is what we've got, and the rules hadn't been made any clearer. And if we look at how things went with the first COVID monies, and they would come back 2 or 3 weeks later and change this or tell her she's supposed to have that, it is difficult. And again, we want to do a good job for everybody. And right now, what we've got on our list of potential projects are the things that we think do qualify. And I believe one disappointment to us was that money can't be used to install new water lines. You can only replace existing. Is that correct?
Well, it can be, but there's a bunch of strings. You've got to show a disadvantaged population. You've got to show contaminated water is what they're only have an option for now. It can't just be expansion to the system if you were regionalizing, you could expand, but if you're only expanding to provide additional service, that's really not eligible unless you can prove that they have contaminated wells and they're a disadvantaged population based on their list of what makes a disadvantaged population. So we're gonna have some challenges with trying to do new water lines. All the lines we have that need replaced are eligible to get them no leaks, get rid of copper and lead lines, get better piping systems so that they're not potentially that water contaminated. Sewer lines, make sure they're not leaking, make sure they're the right capacity. That's okay, that's eligible, but new lines, they have put several restrictions on.
Naturally, if I was on the other side, I wouldn't want it to use the money to make yourself rich. But you are allowed to use it in those situations where the water is contaminated. We got people living with their brother, living with other part of the families, can't live in their own house. They've dug several wells and none of them have drinkable water. And those kind of places would definitely qualify for use under that program, according to what I read on the internet about it. So, but that's, where it won't work. That's an easy decision, isn't it? If the girl says no, she ain't gonna date me, I can go to the next lady. So it's the same difference with this. If it doesn't work here, you go to where it does work. But at least you get a start and you get some things done that's people been begging for 15 years to get done, citizens of Burke County. And what does qualify, fine. If it doesn't qualify, we have to do a good job of explaining to those people why this money cannot be used for that. And Mark, I have said several times, and I'll say it again, we can get, we need to do a promotion on our water so we can get numbers where we already got water run. And I have several ideas if you want to listen someday. I mean, it's not that hard to do. And if the board would have to approve it, that'd be great.
In some of the areas she's talking about, I've contacted environmental health, see if I can get a history of contaminated wells. I mean, we're trying.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One of the things we truly hope comes out of this ultimately is that we have a much better system, that we're saving so much money on day-to-day maintenance because all we've been doing is band-aiding for a long time, that we're going to be past that and be able to take some of those funds and do these type things by leveraging CDBG funds, or DEQ funds, however we can, using those for grant matches, the money that we're no longer going to be pouring $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 a year in maintenance and repair, hopefully, on the water system. We're going to be able to take those funds, if we can use some here to fix some of the worst problems. I'm really looking forward, maybe 5, 6 years from now, that we've talked about that hopefully this takes care of the worst of things that we're having to put money toward every year, and we can take that money and do these new things.
I'm agreeing with Jeff. You've got the broad picture. Go ahead and do what you need to do, because the projects are out there that need to be done. You bring them back to us with the amounts that you think they're going. I find it quite ironic that I can buy $2 million worth of equipment for an ambulance, but I can't buy a flipping ambulance. You know, that just bothers me, that you can spend that kind of money to put stuff in it, but you can't buy the darn ambulance that we probably need to use. That's the reason I'm hoping we can get some additional guidance soon. That's the reason I want to make sure when we do the major projects that have to be done to get us where we need to be, that we have the money left over just in case we're able to do some of those things. And so that's my direction. I think that's what I had said before, but I think we're good now, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, looking into new ambulances on our list. We're doing everything we can. Right now, we can't find that. We've heard others are doing it, but we're not going to do it just because they do. We're going to do it because we think it's in there and correct, because we do not want Burke County to be in a position of paying back funds because we guessed. We want to be very, very certain about any of these projects we do. So, yes, we will definitely. So in 2 weeks, I'll bring you back a more detailed list of some things we want to go ahead and move forward on. If we feel that it needs clarification in the language of the grant ordinance, we'll bring that as well for action at that meeting. Mark will proceed with getting quotes on his big HVAC projects and what we can do with the pump stations, pumps, and other projects. Go ahead and start getting numbers together.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That item will remain on this as a decision.
Jeff, wouldn't our engineers that we hire, wouldn't they have some responsibility, like on this Indian Hills project? I mean, I guess Benji and them, I'm sure they were the engineers on that project. I mean, so many times this thing has failed and whatever, and it's brought before us. It seems to me that somebody's got to have some responsibility. Do we undersize, oversize? What's wrong? What's wrong with the damn system?
Right, and that's what I hope Mark can bring back to us with some data. Tell us where we've been, why we are where we are. Hopefully we can get there.
Going to have a good thought.
Sure.
We don't have problems if you look at Louisiana, and New York, and New Jersey. This whole system got washed away, so
yeah,
we can be thankful for a lot.
All right. Item number 7, reports. Let me remind you, if you've got reports that need to come to the board, please get those to the clerk so she can get those added into the agenda package. Item number 8, other items for information. Man, an old fella is among us today. JR's birthday. Happy birthday, JR. Glad you made it another round. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Again, I remind you, don't litter. We got lots of, in fact, the state's doing a litter campaign right now. I don't have that in front of me, but please help us with that. Secure your loads. Spay and neuter your pets. We had a good report from our animal services folks last month. They're doing a good job continuing to work there. Like us on Facebook. We do put out a lot of information. Would encourage our citizens to like us on Facebook. That gives you some good up-to-date information. When we have things that you need to know, we can post them on Facebook, and you'll get to know them. And that's might help you from going to the convenience center when it's not open on holidays and things like that. And if you were watching last week, you know that it was open, and you could have gone. So, but like us on Facebook. With nothing else to come before us, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That's all of us. Thank you very much.